Welcome back, everybody, to Laying the Points with Luca Rosano. I'm your host, Luca Rosano, coming to you on this April 21st. We got a lot to get to in today's show. A lot of exciting basketball games to get to. It was an incredible slate in the NBA playoffs. Before we get into the action that was, let's quickly recap my picks. So I did pick the Nets to win on the money line. They, of course, lost. I was very upset. The Nets had a big-time lead, and they blew it. But I was happy because I did predict the Bulls to beat the Bucks outright in game 2. They were a massive 10-point underdog. And not only did the Bulls cover that number, but they won the game outright. So I lost with the Nets. I won with the Bulls. Overall, it was an even night for me, 1-1. I did not touch the Raptors game. I don't really like betting on my team. It's just one of those things that I do as a sports bettor. I tend to stay away from my favorite sports team when betting. But boy, oh boy, was it ever an incredible game. And if you did bet on it, you were on the edge of your seat throughout. And let's actually begin the show with that incredible Game 3 game in Toronto. First Raptor playoff game in Toronto since Game 5 of the 2019 NBA Finals. The crowd was rocking inside of the building, outside of the building. Jurassic Park was packed. This was a do or die for the Toronto Raptors. This was a must win. They knew what was at stake. They lose this game. No team has ever come back from 0-3 down. So they came out hot, playing with that great energy. And you got the feeling that the Raptors might have had a chance to return the favor and blow out the Philadelphia 76ers. They were up by as many as 17 points, and I was watching this game thinking to myself, the Raptors are going to be able to get a game here. But then Philadelphia methodically chipped away at that lead. You got to credit their players. James Harden, he didn't necessarily beat this team offensively, but he was doing everything else right. He was getting his teammates involved. He was controlling the pace on the floor. Tyrese Maxey was stepping up when he needed to. And Joel Embiid, he ate like the MVP that he was. He was a spectacular player in this one. And you need superstars to win championships. And right now, Joel Embiid, to me, looks like a motivated superstar that wants to lead the Sixers team to big things. So the Raptors' 17-point lead evaporated. All of a sudden, we're in crunch time. And keep in mind, the Sixers did not have a lead as we entered the latter part of the fourth quarter. And that's when Toronto Stars fumbled. They sold. They did not look good at all. Firstly, Fred VanVleet shot horribly in this game. He was not hitting shots when he needed to. He did not look like the all-star Freddie that we've seen all season long. And then the other star, Pascal Siakam, looked very uncomfortable in big moments. He and Freddie shot 9-29 in this game, could not get anything going. He looked very uncomfortable with the basketball. He was missing shots he normally makes. And because of this, the Raptors unable to close the deal in the fourth quarter, so we head to overtime. And in overtime, Precious Achiuwa had a chance to give the Raptors the lead late. At this point, James Harden had fouled out, so he was not involved in overtime. And Achiuwa misses both free throws, giving the opportunity to Philadelphia to win the game. And I know it was a very, it was a call that was later looked at after when Doc Rivers raced down the court to call the timeout. I think it was Tim and Friends that brought up the rule that you're not allowed to do that. So the referees granted Doc Rivers the foul call when it looked like Philadelphia did not know what they were doing offensively on that final possession. So they did get the they did get the timeout with 0.9 of a second left. And then with 0.9 of a second left, poetic justice, just like 3 years ago, this time it going Philly's way. Joel Embiid hits one of the most magnificent turnaround threes you will ever see by a man of his stature. That is a 7-foot Embiid hitting that shot, looking like a Kobe Bryant type of player with that turnaround J. Hitting the three, winning this game for Philadelphia. There was a little bit of time left, but all in all, Joel Embiid, he got his sweet revenge in Toronto. The Sixers got their sweet revenge in Toronto. Now, it wasn't to win the series. There's still one more game, but that was a big-time shot. 3 years ago, Embiid was crying after a big-time shot was hit on him and his team. 3 years later, he returns the favor, and Philadelphia is now one win away from sweeping the Raptors, and Shaquille O'Neal might be right after all. And if the Raptors do get swept here, Raptors fans owe Shaquille O'Neal an apology. Because I know I was one of those fans getting at Shaq when he said Sixers are going to sweep. I did not expect in my wildest imagination the series was going to go like this. The series was going to go down a dark hole for this Toronto Raptors team. And I know many people want to blame the officials. They want to look at that timeout that was awarded to Philadelphia. But the bottom line, the Raptors lost this game. They were up by as many as 17 points. Their stars did not come up big. The Sixers stars did. And I said Van Vliet and Siakam, two of my X factors, two of my big-time players for this Raptors team, needed to step up. They have not looked like themselves in the series, especially Siakam. And I think he proved to us yesterday that he's not that guy in big moments. So stop trying to defend him. Stop trying to tell me Siakam could be a number one. He's a great player or a good player, but he's not necessarily a great player when it matters. And the Raptors' lack of a superstar, a lack of a player that really controlled the game or got a big bucket late, hurt them. They did not have that guy. OG looked like the closest to being that guy. And he looked more confident than Fred, than Siakam on this team late in the game. I know he missed the key late free throw, but other than that, OG was doing his thing. Gary Trent Jr. bounced back. Achua, I know he missed both free throws, but he had a solid game, 20 from off the bench. The Raptors had their opportunities. They simply left the door open, and you got to credit Philadelphia. They played their worst game of the series. They turned the ball over a ton. They didn't have their first lead until overtime, and they found a way to win this game. And that's what good teams do. That's what great teams do in the postseason. When they do not play their best, they still come away with the win. So you got to give a lot of credit to the Sixers and Doc Rivers because they went out there and they came back and took that game away from Toronto. And now the Raptors are going to have to make history if they want to come back and win the series. No team has ever come back from a 0-3 series deficit in a best of 7. I think the stat is 0-172. Many have tried, many have come close. Nobody has accomplished that feat. And my reaction to that game winner from Embiid, unbelievable, man. Like, that's one of those things that hurts to watch, but at the same time, as a basketball fan, your eyes open up a little bit more watching what you just watched. This Sixers team, they've been through a lot. And sometimes you need to go through those tough losses, those heartbreakers, before you reach the pinnacle. The Raptors were a team that had to do that before they won the championship. The Bucks were a team that had to do that before they won a championship. Now, I'm not necessarily sold that the Sixers team will go on to win the championship, but they're a good enough team to make some noise in the East. Assuming they close the deal here against the Raptors, they'll go up against, in all likelihood, the Miami Heat. Don't be surprised if the Philadelphia 76ers, with an Embiid playing like he's playing right now, can make it to a finals. James Harden's going to have to do a little bit more offensively, in my opinion, but Maxi's been stepping up as that third option, looking like a star. The role players have been great for the Sixers. Guys like Tobias Harris, Danny Green, Yang. How about Yang, man? He could not miss a damn three from off the bench in that game yesterday. If those guys are hitting shots and the Philly Stars are doing their thing, and Embiid is able to play at the high level that he's playing at, they're going to be tough to beat in the 7-game series. And this has actually been a statement on their end, going up against this very tough, well-coached Raptors team, a team that many had winning this series and doing what they're doing to them. And if the Raptors are unable to get even one win this series, it's just going to tell you how prepared and how for real the Sixers team looks. And on the flip side, it's going to be very disappointing if you're a Raptors fan because they did a lot of good things in the regular season. We touted Van Vliet, Siakam having great seasons. And it just seemed like it never came together. And it just had that gloomy feel from the get-go, right? Game 1, Raptors go down early. Thad Young gets injured. Scotty Barnes gets injured. And then from that point on, the Raptors were never able to get any momentum on their side. So Game 4 now is on Saturday. The Raptors try to do the impossible. They'll have 2 days off before that Game 4. I don't think they're going to come back and win this series. But what I will say is this. I hope the Raptors don't get swept. Even if the Raptors can force the Sixers' hand a little bit here, win 1 or 2 games, I will be happy considering the circumstances. If they flat out get swept, it's going to be a very disappointing end to what was a very good season for this team. And Scotty Barnes should be able to go in Game 4. Nick Nurse said he expects Scotty Barnes to go out there. What I'll say is this to that. You better make sure Scotty Barnes is 100% because there is no need to rush your prize, your face of the franchise, the talented young stud that Scotty Barnes is for Game 4 when this series is essentially a wrap. So unless Scotty is feeling great and he's 100%, do not rush him out there just because your ego doesn't want to get swept by the Sixers team. So the Toronto Raptors lose a heartbreaker. They're down 0-3. Philadelphia's feeling good. And now the Raptors got to respond on Saturday, or else they're going to get swept for the first time in the playoffs since those LeBronto days. And that's going to bring Raptors fans back to a very unpleasant time. The Raptors weren't the only team that fumbled the bag and blew a big-time lead. How about the Brooklyn Nets? I'm a little bit worried for them now. And I'm very worried for my NBA Finals pick. I had the Nets getting on through to the NBA Finals, and now I don't even think they're going to win the series. This is a team that got humbled by the Boston Celtics, and this was a team that let one slip away in Game 2. The Brooklyn Nets were up by as many as 17 points. I didn't watch this game. I watched the highlights after because I was obviously watching the Raptors game. I can't multitask like that. I can't watch 2 or 3 games at the same time. I like to zone in on one. But when I saw the score line, I thought the Nets had this one in the bag. I was ready to sit there and say the Nets tied up the series. They're going to feel good about themselves going back to Brooklyn. But the second half was a disaster. Kevin Durant literally played probably one of his worst games we have seen in quite some time. He did not look like Kevin Durant. That was the worst game I ever saw from Kevin Durant personally. He was 0 of 10 in that second half with 4 turnovers. And he and Kyrie, the superstars, the stars that needed to be good for this Brooklyn Nets team, they came up short. 8 of 30 from the field overall in Game 2 in a need-to-have-them game. And look at that. The Nets were up 93-85, 11:28 left in the game. And then in 7 minutes, the Celtics flipped that script. The Celtics defense is scary. I want to credit them because this is a legitimate Celtics team. I did not think that they would look this good against the Nets. But right now, this Celtics team, they look like a team that belongs. They're getting great production from Tatum, Brown, that supporting cast. And that defense, one of the best, if not the very best in the NBA right now. Look what they're doing to guys like Durant and Kyrie. I have Kevin Durant as the best player in the NBA, and they made him look ordinary. So from the Nets' perspective, there's no excuses. If you're Kyrie and KD, you got to look yourself in the mirror. That was on you. You needed to be better. You needed to step up because you know you are the guys for your team. And now the Nets are going to go back to Barclays needing that Game 3, or else just like the Raptors series, it's going to be a wrap. And speaking about the defense, I got to mention the guy who you just saw looking at his hand, Marcus Smart, Defensive Player of the Year. There's no other defender in the league right now I would want than him. Such a hard-nosed defender. He goes at your best players. This Celtics team, they're legitimate. And if they can get by the Brooklyn Nets, I would not be surprised if this Celtics team makes it to the final. I said before, the winner of the series gets to the NBA Finals. The Celtics right now are playing like a championship-esque team. The Celtics, in their franchise history, have only lost 1 series when going up 2-0, and that actually came against LeBron in 2018. So history is on their side that the Boston Celtics should be able to get out. But you still give the Nets a chance just because they do have big-time players and one of the best in Kevin Durant on their team. And what will be interesting for the Nets is if they can make this a series, win Game 3, because it's been reported by Shams that Ben Simmons is expected to be back for Game 4. So could you imagine that debut for Ben Simmons? What a debut that would be. Nets down 2-1, Simmons comes back, and another must-have-him game for the Nets in Brooklyn. That would be must-see TV. But before that happens, the Nets need to win Game 3, and there's a lot of pressure on them right now, particularly Steve Nash. His coaching was already in question, but the way that these first 2 games have gone, I know you got to put a lot of the blame on the players, but he has been out-coached. He has been out-executed by Udoka. Steve Nash does not look like he knows what he's doing right now. And if this Nets team fails to get out of the first round, there's going to be major changes coming. And the first is going to be Steve Nash getting fired, in my opinion. Because I know they're the 7th seed. I know they're going up against a very formidable foe. But there's no excuse why the Nets, with their healthy stars, can't at least make this a competitive series and beat the Boston Celtics. So right now, Celtics fans are having a great time. Brooklyn, they got to come out with a very sound and dominant Game 3 win for me to become a believer of them in the series again. It's not over, but it's looking like it after what we saw in Games 1 and 2, particularly in Game 2 when the Celtics literally sucked the life out of the Nets' best players and just closed them down. It was crazy to see. So just like that, the Philadelphia 76ers up 3-0. The Brooklyn Nets down 0-2. What a crazy NBA playoffs this has been. And very quickly here, the Chicago Bulls, they beat the Milwaukee Bucks in Game 2. A lot of people had that series ending in a sweep. You got to credit DeMar DeRozan. He put the team on his back. I think he finished with 41 points. He was good in the clutch against Giannis. The Bulls finally beat a top 3 team, and they keep their chances alive and looking well. So there's been a lot of parity in these playoffs so far. A lot of the unexpected has happened, right? Who had the Raptors going down 0-3? Who had the Nets going down 0-2? Who had the Bulls winning the game? Who had the Pelicans now in the driver's seat against the Suns with Devin Booker expected to miss Games 3 and 4? That's why we love these playoffs, especially now, with parity at an all-time high. Speaking of the NBA playoffs, let's get to some picks tonight. We got 3 games on tap, looking to rebound and go 3-0. We're first going to start with the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves. The Target Center is going to be electric. I'm looking forward to this one just because of the crowd. That Timberwolves crowd went crazy when they beat the Clippers to get into the playoffs, as they all celebrated like they won a championship. Could you imagine what they'll do tonight if they win a playoff game at Target Center? They're going to celebrate like they just won another championship. So the Memphis Grizzlies, they started off, I think, as a 1.5-point favorite. It's gone up a little bit. They're minus 2-point favorites, and rightfully so. The Grizzlies look great in that bounce-back win in Game 2. Ja Morant, he stepped up. The Grizzlies had their largest margin of victory in their postseason history. And you look at this team going into tonight, 9 of the Grizzlies' last 10 have come by 8 or more points. And during that span, their average margin of victory is 21.6. Yes, these are the playoffs. The Timberwolves are a solid team. But I think the Grizzlies are going to use that momentum they got in Game 2, and they're going to carry it out here on the road because they know they need to take at least one of these 2 road games, if not both. So I do think Memphis, they got a little bit of the monkey off their back getting that big win against the Timberwolves to return the favor. I do expect the Grizzlies to go into Minnesota and win that game. It's going to be a hard-fought game. I expect it to go down to the wire, which is why the spread is as low as it is. Vegas thinks the same. But I do think the Grizzlies will come away with the 2-1 series lead. I will lay the 2. I think they win by at least a bucket. Next game, we got the Mavericks taking on the Jazz. All the talk is about Luca Doncic. Will he be ready to go for Games 3 and 4? It said that it's on the table. And I was trying to look to see if there was anything new about Doncic. They're keeping it quiet right now, rightfully so. The Mavericks have not made an announcement about Luca Doncic tonight. And you better believe if he does play, this line is going to shift significantly. I was actually quite surprised that the Jazz are a 7-point favorite here. I'm going with the Mavericks. The Jazz lost my trust in that game too. I thought the Jazz were going to win that Game 2 and put the clamps on this Mavs team in this best of 7. But they lost Game 2 the way that they did, where the Mavs hit 21 threes. Jalen Brunson scored 41. How the hell can I trust the Utah Jazz here? I know they're one of the better home teams in the NBA, but that home court advantage for them wasn't necessarily a lock during the regular season. And you look at this Mavericks team, they have been a solid road team all season. 23-18 straight up and 23-17-1 against the spread. And they're 3-1 against the spread in their last 4 road games. And Utah is 1-6-1 against the spread in games after they allow 100 points. I don't think the Jazz will be able to slow down the Mavs even without Luka, because the Mavs prove that they can hit that 3 and the Jazz can't stop them. So I'm going Mavs plus 7. I'm going to get on this now because if Luka is ruled in for this game, that line's going to shift significantly. And if Luka plays, I definitely like the Mavericks. Even without Luka, though, I'm going to be taking the points with Dallas plus 7. And then in the final game of the night in the NBA playoffs, we got the Warriors taking on the Nuggets. It's a must-win for the Nuggets. They do not want to go down 0-3 against the Warriors. But quite frankly, it doesn't matter. The series is done. Put a bow in it. Yeah, I'm going with the Warriors minus 2. I would not be surprised if the Warriors sweep the Nuggets. The Warriors look so overwhelming right now. And the Nuggets look like a team that just has one great player and nobody else around him. I feel bad for Nikola Jokic. His last playoff series ended in a sweep, and his next playoff series is looking like it might end in a sweep. You look at the Nuggets, they are just 4-10 straight up and against the spread in their last 14 as a home dog. So their home court advantage hasn't even been much of an advantage. Everybody talks about altitude, mile high, the Denver area, Colorado area. It's not going to slow down what the Warriors have been doing. They got the most lethal weapon coming off the bench in Stephen Curry. Jordan Poole looks like the third Splash brother. Those Warriors are gaining confidence by the day. Defense looking good. I regret not taking the Warriors to come out of the West. And this is actually going to lead me to something I said before. I said this, I think, in a show like last week. Never go against your gut instinct. At the start of the year, before the regular season went down, I said Warriors to the finals. And then right before the playoffs, I gave respect to the Suns. Now, I'm not saying the Suns are done, but based on what I've seen in the first couple of games of these playoffs from both sides, I should have stuck with that Warriors pick. The Warriors look very good right now, and they're going to keep on getting better. And this is a team I would not be surprised if they do make it to the NBA Finals when it's all said and done. But first, we got to get through these games. I know I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I like the Warriors tonight -2. They're going to keep it going, and it's going to be another long night for Nikola Jokic and company. So those are my 3 picks. Just to quickly recap in the NBA, I like the Mavericks +7. I like the Warriors -2, and then I got the Grizzlies -2 as well. So I got 2 favorites and an underdog tonight. Now we're going to wrap things up by talking about the most anticipated game in the NHL. And I'm looking forward to this one. It's going to be a big-time showdown. Leafs Lightning, potential first-round playoff preview. The Lightning are the favorites on the money line at -115. Now, the reason why the Leafs are underdogs here, namely, Matthews will not be playing tonight against Tampa Bay. That's going to be a huge loss for the Leafs. You look at the Leafs, they enter this contest on a 4-game winning streak, so they are riding a ton of momentum. And those 4 wins were against Capitals, Senators, Islanders, and Flyers. So a lot of them are inferior to what the team is in the Tampa Bay Lightning. So the Maple Leafs are an underdog. You could get them at good value if you think they're going to win, and they're probably even more of an underdog now because Matthews has officially been ruled out. You look at Tampa Bay, they're just 3-6 over their last 9 games. This is a team that they have not been playing good hockey at all. It's their second worst stretch of their season. However, I do like the Lightning in this spot in a bounce back in a key divisional matchup. I think they'll come ready to go. I think the Leafs not having Matthews is going to be too big of a loss to overcome. Their offense won't be able to keep up here. Tampa Bay, they're going to be a significant favorite, I know. So you could even get them on the puck line -1.5. But just to be safe, I'm going to just take the Lightning on the money line. I think this will still be a competitive game, a close game throughout. But I do like the Lightning at home to take care of the Leafs. So give me the Lightning -115. That is the lone hockey game I'm touching tonight. So a little parlay, if you will. Lightning money line, Warriors -2, Mavs +7, Grizzlies -2. Drop some money on that. Hopefully you can win. The last time I did a parlay, I think it was 2 of 4. So listen, parlays are tough. They're really tough, but you can take my picks. You can leave my picks. All I know is this. I'm betting on these games tonight because playoffs are that time of year where you definitely want to sprinkle some dough and bet, of course, responsibly. That will conclude another great edition of Laying the Points with Luca Rosano. I am Luca Rosano, taking some points today and also laying them. I hope you enjoyed today's show. You can catch the show live on Twitter. We stream it also on YouTube, Parlay TV. You can catch this podcast wherever you get your favorite podcast, at Apple iTunes. Leave a comment. Let us know which games you want us to cover in the upcoming days. And yeah, we will see how the NBA playoffs shape up, as every night seems to be a new surprise for us all watching. This is Luca signing off. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all again in tomorrow's show.